Hey everyone, welcome back. Here's my channel where I play Planet Zoo. Today we are building for the African wild dog, and yes, I thought it was about time we had a road, and I really wanted to give them a big, lushful habitat, so it just fitted in nicely to put it right in here. So if you want to see how I build all of this, or actually learn a little bit about what people do in real life to save these beautiful animals, then please keep watching. Okay guys, when I sat down to build this, I thought I gonna just make this, well, it's gonna be big, but it's like a dry, deserty area over here and a little foliage over here. It's gonna be quick. I think I built it in the middle of the night because it just couldn't sleep. So it's just wanted to do something easy and quick. And suddenly I built a cave, and suddenly I made a rock climb and a rock bridge and a water area and a track and everything included in this habitat. So yeah, it became a little bigger than intended, but I really like the way it ended up. And basically that's the important part, I guess. When we look at the African wild dog, which is one of the animals that I actually never knew before I started playing Planet Zoo, so thank you Frontier for that. I have no idea why I never heard about them before, because they are kind of in the dog category, which is full of animals that we normally hear a lot about. So that's a little weird. Anyway, we are looking at six species on the list here, being all animals within the lichen genome, being not like wolf, but still in the same genre. They are of course canine in the subfamily Caninae and in the Canini tribe, which holds 6 animals. That is including the short-eared dog, but that's not in the same genome, being Lycaon. Lycaon. I'm not sure if you can pronounce it better than I can. You probably can. Anyway, we are looking at 6 species on the species list, one being the Lycaon pictus, which is the African wild dog. And then we have the 5 subspecies, which means if you look at it alone, isolated, we only have 1 species with 5 subspecies under there. So that includes the Lycaon pictus, which is the Cape wild dog. We have the Lycaon pictus lupinus, which is the East African wild dog. Lycaon pictus somalicus, which is the Somali wild dog. Lycaon pictus manguensis. Sorry, that wasn't right, but that's the West African wild dog. And lastly, we have the Lycaon pictus charicus, which is the Chadian wild dog. I'm not sure if it's Cadian or if it's Chadian, but these are of course all African wild dogs. Some smaller, some bigger, some have different ear shape, but all the same species. I'm just mentioning this because I like to talk specific subspecies. I think it is very important. And for me, if we talk about, I know there's difference between the race and subspecies, but for me, if we only save one species, it's the same as saying I will only save black people and then the white and Asian people can die, or any other species like that, race like that. So I find it very weird when we look at a website like the IUCN Red List that they group them in together, because these may not have the same issues and therefore the same needs. However, they are listed as endangered, which terrifies me, because across 5 subspecies there are currently 1,000 409 mature individuals in the wild, and the numbers are decreasing. I will mention though this information is from 18th May 2012. However, it wasn't published before 2020, so that's a little confusing. So yeah, at that point the numbers were decreasing, and there were around 1,400 mature individuals in the wild. It is weird to think about. Anyway, it does make sense when we look at the map that there are so many subspecies, because they are actually grouped in various different parts of Africa. Some are bigger than others, of course, but there's really far between some of these points, so it does make sense over generations and generations that subspecies have occurred. They are currently still living in Angola, Benin, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, Chad, Ethiopia, Kenya, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Niger, Senegal, South Africa, South Sudan, Tanzania, United Republic of Zambia, and Zimbabwe. They are possibly extinct, which means we do not know. Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea-Bissau, Mali, Nigeria, Togo, and Uganda, and they are completely extinct in Burundi, Cameroon, Egypt, Eritrea, Eswatini, Gabon, Gambia, Ghana, Mauritania, Rwanda, Sierra Leone. And then they have present uncertain, which I'm not sure why there's a difference between present uncertain and possibly extinct, but that would be Algeria and Guinea. But as you can see here, there's still a lot of countries they are in, and a lot of these countries have countries in between, which is also why they are so vastly split up, especially because the numbers are so low. So all of that area cannot simply be covered by all of these dogs. They live primarily in forest, savanna, scrubland, grassland, and desert, and mostly stay within the tropical climate zone. When we look at the issues for the African wild dog, it's really not that weird that they are endangered at all. We can look at a single issue being such as residential and commercial development, where they are threatened by housing and urban areas, as well as commercial and industrial areas. And that is basically, you build these areas, there are no place for the dogs. We can also go to a point such as agriculture and aquaculture, where we have harvesting of different kinds of crops. Of course, having a field on its own is not an issue, because it won't eat the vegetables or weed or whatever you have on the field. That's not the issue. But when you harvest, these giant machineries can kill pretty big animals. Not an elephant, I'm pretty sure, but African wild dog, no issues there. And therefore also I think it's a bigger issue that for the farmers that have livestock such as cows, pigs, and so on. Again, we have these so we can eat them, not so the wild animals can. And once again, you cannot blame the individual farmer for having to protect him and his family's livelihood by shooting an animal. I understand that, it's not that at all, but it is sad that it is an issue. Moving on to energy production and mining, we have still oil and gas drilling in a lot of these countries, as well as mining and quarrying. Sorry, I didn't pronounce that right, but you know what I mean. Again, I'm not blaming African countries for this at all, but it is very, very big industries in some of these countries, and it is hurting the animals. Not only the wild dogs, but a lot of animals we see these issues with. It's not only the drilling and the mining on its own, but it's also the transport, it's building the roads to transport these things, it's the noise around it. There's a lot of different factors, as well as making room for the workers for these areas. They of course need to be somewhere also. Anyway, I just like to mention here on the video, the grass is extremely green. I have leaves terrain replacer for savanna on currently. I'm trying it out for a while, I think, and as you can see, it's much more pigmented, so it's a little different to work with. So I try to combine it. It's a little weird for this habitat, but there's some of the other habitats where I really want it and like it. So yeah, it's just, if you don't know why I have a video out on it, it went out last Sunday, I think. Sorry, Friday, I think. So yeah, if you want to see that, it's there. Anyway, back to our threats. Again, the issues we came from with energy production and mining moves on into our transportation and service corridors, which is basically roads and railroads. Is both an issue when they get built. They are very noisy and they are very dangerous to be around. And at the same time, when they are built, the cars, the trucks, the trains can really kill a animal very, very fast, and therefore it's again not an issue specifically for the African wild dog, but it is an issue for a lot of animals in a lot of countries. I do know, however, some places, for instance here close to where I live, where they actually, because we have a wood area on one side on the highway and then fields on the other side of the highway, they actually decided to lift up the highway so the animals can go unhindered underneath. Is there still animals that is stupid enough to go over the highway? Definitely, but it helps out a lot of animals, and it's something I think a lot of people in a lot of countries have been more aware of in the later years. Looking under biological resource use, they are both hunted and trapped, and this is probably more for self-protection or protection of property than it is so for fur or eating the meat of these dogs. They are actually also having issue in the logging and wood harvesting areas, but again, that's probably either people killing them to get them away from the area, or simply that they get stuck in a machine of some sort. Again, this is heavy-duty machinery, and there's a reason why we have all these rules around using them, because if you get caught in one of these, you get hurt right away, and no one are taking these dogs to the vet. Now we come to one of those where I really it gets my blood boiling, and that is the category of human intrusion and disturbance. And here they have issues with a group. This is a grouping, so it's not all of that at once, but it's at least one thing in this group, and the category is called war, civil unrest, and military exercise. So of course, if there's war in an area, you have guns around and you don't always hit what you're shooting at. It's also very noisy. Again, you have heavy machinery, but it can also be like a military exercise where simply, again, on accident or by getting scared, you can hurt these animals. It's really a big issue, but again, I don't really have the solution for it, sadly. Then we have one of these kind of weird ones, which is the category called invasive and other problematic species, genes, and diseases. and we have 2 undercategories here which are relative here. It is invasive non-native alien species diseases, which in this case I imagine could be very much from domesticated dogs carrying disease that the African wild dogs can't handle because, again, no one is taking them to the vet. It can also simply be other species from other areas that come in and overtake their areas. It could be a bigger predator, or it could simply be a human, which actually also are a intrusive species in a lot of countries. Besides that, we have the undercategory called viral prion-induced diseases, which again is diseases that they can get from a number of things. Again, these are not known to be the most clean of animals, and it can be something as basic of polluted water, which again can be because of one of all of the other issues that they have here. Again, not a nice thing, but I wish I could do something, but I don't have the solution in my back pocket. The thankfully last thing on the list here, or the last category, is climate change and severe weather, which is pretty much always included. This is not only climate change. I will say that it can also just be severe weather that is naturally occurring in the areas, and in this case it's temperature extreme, suddenly very, very hot and dry, or very, very cold areas. And depending on where we look in their range, there is areas where there are supposed to be these extremely hot seasons. So it can be that, but it can of course be exterminated. That's not the word. Enforced by climate change, and that is always something we need to be aware of. Because of all of this, it is, of course, extremely important to have a good plan and change things where you can change them to help, but without actually crumpling the local populations, of course. Therefore, you always start by putting in research and monitoring plans. So you basically can start with localizing the issues and see, okay, but we have this whole area over here. Why don't they just go over there? Is there an issue? What is happening? And therefore, they have a action recovery plan in place, and they have systematic monitoring scheme in place. That could be drones. It can be trail cameras. It can be local people on the ground in the areas that go in and monitoring the situation. It can be all kinds of things. Next up, we have in place water and land protection. That could basically either be localizing an area and protect it in the way that you are not allowed to shoot these animals, unless, of course, it's a matter of life and death. A lot of countries have these special plans where you are not allowed to shoot an animal unless you need to shoot an animal. It's kind of normal in a way. Anyway, and then it's also water protection, which can help with a lot of the health issues that they have with different diseases and so on. And here we can see that they have conservation sites identified, and it says yes over entire range, so it's everywhere they live. It's not just in some of these countries, and it's in all of them, which is quite good. Then we have area-based regional management plans, which we do not have, which means we do not have a plans based on regional placement, which means you don't have a local plan. But we have these protection plans in place on at least one of their protected areas. Which means that even though it's not a regional plan, it can be a base plan for all of the areas, for instance. Looking at the species management specifically, we actually have 2 things in place, which is successfully reintroduce or introduce beingly, And that is either that you find places where there haven't been African wild dogs and try to move some of them over there from areas where they may not thrive, or you can take animals from elsewhere, from captivity for instance, and try to release them into area either where they already are some to add new blood, or simply to add some where they previously were some, where they have died out already. And add to that we have subject to ex situ conservation, which they also have. And lastly, we talk about education. Education can both be locally, but it can also be globally. And some of these are really, really important, or all of these are, because sometimes it's not only what the local population can do, but also what you and I can do, besides the different kind of try to help the climate change situation things. For instance, here we have education and awareness programs in place, which would be either, again, for us to know that they are here. Actually, this video could be included if I did it in some kind of official capacity, but it can also be in the local areas. Is there areas where we shoot them where we don't have to? Is there places where we maybe could just try to get out of a situation without having to killing them? Next up, they are currently included in a international legislation, which is legislations around these dogs specifically. However, when we look at the more specifically international management and trade control, they are not included in any of that. So I'm not sure what the difference between here, but I would be sad to find any part of an African wild dog on a market anywhere, dead or alive. I think a lot of us at this point sit back with a feeling of what can I do? I already mentioned the basic climate change things you can do, but the thing is that you can also go in and be a little more specific. I didn't find a African wild dog help organization, but I did find African Wildlife Conservation Fund, which I will link below. Again, you can go and donate, you can go and read, and you can actually go and adopt. And it's not just adopt a African wild dog. There's specific packs where you can go in and read more about this specific pack, and then adopt a dog specifically from that pack, which I actually think is quite unique compared to just adopting one. So yeah, that will be linked below, and again, no pressure, it's up to you if it's something you want to do. But for now, guys, enjoy the cinematics and I will come back afterwards. Okay, guys, that's all I got for you today. I really hope you enjoyed it. And as always, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell on notification so you know the next time I upload a video. I really hope to see you again, either in the comments below or in the next video. Bye, guys.